definition of success was. And I got a little away from the career gods. I remember one day I was at the bar, I was making drinks, and someone says, oh, I'm sure you don't bartend full time. What else, what do you do? And I said, I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. That shit changed my life, y'all. Here's why. Because I gave myself a new positive contextual label, I started seeing myself in a new way. All of a sudden, I started telling people about these dance classes that I just started to teach, these workshops I was given. By the way, I just want to say this. I was about 25 at this time. I'd never taken a fucking dance class in my life. Never. I was all passion. So anyone in here who thinks like, oh, I might be too old to do X, Y, and Z, or I don't have experience or education or training in a particular field, do not let that bullshit stop you. Yes? So, there was a nice portion of my career where I was juggling a lot of things at once. I had this growing coaching practice. I became one of the world's first Nike Elite dance athletes and master trainers. So I traveled all over the world teaching people some hip hop and doing fitness videos and choreographing for Nike and Reebok and all kinds of places. And then eventually I hit a place probably when I was about 28, 29, where all of those plates spinning in the air, it was awesome, but I had another realization. I was spreading myself too thin. And my intuition told me now is the time to focus in. And I started to think about, well, what do I want my life to be like over these next 10 or 15 years? If I want to reach the kind of money-making capability that I have for in my head, those big dreams, and I want to do that in the world of fitness, all I could think of, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to make up like a Thigh Master or some shit. Like I'm gonna have to be doing infomercials, do you know what I mean? I'm gonna have to be traveling. And then I was trying to think, I'm like, can I really imagine myself, teaching hip hop like in my 60s and like making money from the physical aspect of my body? And I tried that future on, I was like, oh hell no, right? I'm definitely still gonna be dancing. Like, I hope I'm gonna be doing hip hop when I'm 120. That's the age I'm shooting for. That's where I'm going. But I didn't necessarily want to be making money from that direction. And then I thought about my coaching business, and I thought about the opportunity to make an impact through my ideas, and through my heart, and through my ability to connect with people by sharing information and education that can train their lives, that could change their lives. And I'll tell you, it was a full body yes. So I shut down the hip hop, the dance, the fitness aspects of my career, and I went full in my online business, and that was probably a little over 12 years ago. Yeah.
Totally fascinating. I didn't even know you had a hip hop career in all of this. I knew you did. I didn't know you professionally did that as well when you're trying to get all this other stuff up and running. So if someone does want to get something up and coming or get started, where do they begin? It seems like you're constantly asking yourself questions. You have a voice. What if someone doesn't have a voice? What do they do?
Well, everyone has a voice, and I want to answer that first question. So where do you get started? I live my life by mantras because I have so many amazing, crazy, creative ideas up here that if I don't have mantras to keep me focused, it'll get messy real quick, and not the good kind of messy, you know what I mean? Like the frustrating kind of messy. So here's one of the mantras I live my life by. Clarity comes from engagement, not thought. Clarity comes from engagement, not thought. So for me, I had spent so much time in my early 20s fantasizing. Could I be a dancer? Do I have what it takes? Torturing myself because I had not had formal dance training, thinking about it, fantasizing about it, but you know where I missed the mark? I didn't get my ass into a friggin' dance class. I never actually did anything. I just sit on my couch and just laid in my bed thinking about it, but not taking action toward it. And I'll tell you this, Elena. When I finally got my head straight, and I said, the only way I'm gonna know if this dance thing could actually be a thing for me is I need to go take my first professional dance class. And it was at Broadway Dance Center in New York City, which is like where the kind of pros go, right? So I am intimidated. I looked so dorky. I remember showing up and everybody else was so cool, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm nothing. I felt like I was gonna get laughed out of class. And I took this first dance class, and I remember sitting down on the floor, and the bass filled the room, and I literally started to weep. I started to weep because my body knew that this was my destiny. So clarity comes from engagement, not thought. If there is any area in your business or in your career or in your life that you want to know, should I go in this direction? Find some tangible way immediately to test, to experiment, to dip your toe in the water. And then don't just trust this thing, because I'll tell you, this thing is an amazing tool, it's a shitty master. Trust this thing. You have so much wisdom in your body. There is so much natural knowing. That's one of the reasons, Elena, that I think movement is such magic, because in our culture today, so many of us live just from the neck up, am I right? We're looking at these things all the fucking time. We're sitting around with our computers all the time, and we've lost touch with the intelligence, the genius, the channels of creativity that come through this thing. And you don't have to like dance how I do. For you, it might be running, it might be walking, it might be cycling, it might be boxing, it could be anything. But the more you get in touch and move this thing, I'll tell you, it opens up channels of insight, channels of knowledge, channels of certainty that I don't believe you can get to any other way. And I'll tell you this, anytime now where I find myself in a little bit of a conundrum, you know how when you're struggling with a particular business situation, do I or don't I hire this person? How are we going to move ahead with building this team? You're kind of caught in a situation you're not sure how to move ahead. I take a spin class. I take a spin class, or I do something that is so intense physically that it opens up a channel, and then I get what I call downloads. And this isn't some airy-fairy shit, right? This has to do with your brain. This has to do with the chemicals, the incredible chemical pharmacy in your brain and in your body that open you up to what you know.
I love that. I mean, I train almost every day for this exact same reason. It's like an outlet, you know? I so relate to that. But I heard you just mention when you're trying to figure out who you hire and stuff. I'm interested in who you hang out with. Has your circle changed since the beginning? Do you hang out a lot? Like, you know?
So in terms of my team, in terms of growing a team, and in terms of culture fit, I think that's probably one of the most important pieces to the puzzle of long-term success, not just short-term success. You know, the mistakes I've made in my company are when I've brought people on board too fast and I was too desperate, right? I was desperate for a warm body. Does anyone relate to that? Where you needed to fill a position, right? Because you're so...
Or sometimes it's hard to let go of a position because you don't have the time to retrain, rehire.
Yes. So 2 lessons there. So for me, I've made the mistake of hiring too fast and not really doing what we call in our company date to marry. So we're always dating before we get married to someone. What does that look like practically? It looks like this. Finding a way to have a test period where for us, we absolutely pay people. So it could be freelance projects, it could be a test basis, but we put everything transparent on the table. We say, hey, look, we all think we're gonna like working together. We think this is gonna be awesome. But y'all know how absolutely expensive it is, not just financially, but emotionally and the impact on the rest of the team to have a wrong toxic fit in your team. How many people can relate, right? And so people sometimes, and God bless them, we love them, they can present like a badass on paper. They show up with that resume, they show up with the smile, they're saying all the right things, and you're like, okay, this sounds amazing, and then you get them in the door and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah, how did this happen? How'd you hoodwink me again, right? So this is why Date to Marry is such a great approach, because it gives them an opportunity to test you out. It gives you an opportunity to see if they are actually as great as they represent themselves to be, and then you can both move on in confidence. Does that make sense? I'll tell you this, another thing that we've learned in our company too is once you discover that someone is not the right culture fit, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person, they can be an amazing human, but for whatever reason they are not a fit for your team or your company, you have to fire fast. Why? Toxic people will take down and infect your whole team, and that is so hard to replace. And here's the deal. You can absolutely let people go with generosity, with compassion, and with respect, but you gotta do it fast. And beware of that conversation that you have in your head, like, oh, we can't afford to do it right now. We have a launch, we have this happening. It's never gonna be a good time to rip that Band-Aid off. But as the CEO and leaders that you guys are, it is your responsibility to take care of your culture, to take care of your customers, and to protect this beautiful entity that you have worked so hard to build. Plus, It's doing a service to that human who's not a right culture fit. Because guess what? If it ain't right for you, it ain't right for them. They may be putting a smile on every day, but they're fucking miserable. They're not saying it. So you're doing them such a service by setting them free with love and respect and compassion and giving them an opportunity to find their next adventure.
I love that. Because empires are destroyed from the inside.
That's right.
Not from the outside. It's easy to fight an enemy. I know exactly what I'm looking for, but it's the ones on the inside that will destroy and use toxicity to destroy the inside. All of a sudden, you're now focused not on the mission, not on helping people, not on going bigger. Now you have an internal problem you're trying to figure out, and like dealing with the bomb that went off inside the company.
That's right, and it takes you so far off track, you have to heal it like it was a sickness, and that takes you off that track of making money and making a difference, which is exactly why we're all here. Yes?
How do you, in your company, what are the strategies that you use to communicate the value? Or what would you tell people how they can communicate their value better? Like what strategies, marketing?
Yeah. So this is a thing that I actually love to teach about. We do this in our program that's called B-School, Online Business School for Modern Entrepreneurs who both want to make money and make a difference. I think it's so much about empathy. When you want to be able to communicate value to someone you're serving, it comes down to understanding who your ideal customer is on such a deep level that they think you're tapping their phone. You connect with them so well, you can give language to speak what they're saying to themselves about their fears and frustrations, their dreams, their aspirations, on such an intimate level that you're literally using their language. And you're doing so in such a way that you're standing shoulder to shoulder with them, right? So you're not condescending, but you're also not belittling, and you're not sugarcoating anything. When there's pain, when there's upset, you're saying, hey, I relate to you. Here's what you're going through. I understand because maybe I've been there, or I've been working with this population so long, and I get your pain. And guess what? There's a way out. You know, I've been watching from backstage. I think that you and your husband do this so incredibly well of connecting with people on an emotional level. You know, people don't buy from here. Where do they buy from? Here. And you gotta drop down into your heart. You gotta understand people, listen to them. I always recommend that people do interviews as much as humanly possible with their ideal customers. By the way, you guys, keywords, ideal customers. That's not everybody. When you're talking to everybody in your business, guess what? You're talking to nobody. Your shit gets so vanilla, so bland, so generic, it won't convert.
I mean, trying to be liked by everybody.
Oh my goodness. How many people have ever tried to be liked by too many damn people? Anyone ever made that mistake? Oh my God, it is the worst ever. Not only will your marketing be so boring, it'll put people to sleep, you'll never get anyone's attention, but here's what's even worse. You start pulling in people who are not your ideal customers, and then guess what? Your business is not a joy to run, it's a fucking nightmare. That's not what we're about. Are you guys okay with Jersey Marie on a Sunday? Does that work for you? Okay, good. I was talking to GC last week, and I was like, can I bring like all of me to this table? I always want to be respectful of other people's audiences, you know what I mean? But
bring it all. This audience can have you.
Fuck yeah!
I want to know how you get the attention of Oprah Winfrey. How does that happen?
Yeah, so okay, Oprah is someone who I so respect, admire, adore. I was one of those little kids, like many of us in this room, who watched the Oprah Winfrey show all the time. And I remember when I first started working as a coach, I was just dreaming to myself that one day I'd even get to meet her. The way that we got on Oprah's radar, and this is not bullshit, this is the truth. It was because I had been doing the work of creating content and putting things out there and working with people consistently, probably for well over a decade. So here's something you guys might want to write down. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally, it comes from what you do consistently. Yes? Consistency is probably one of the most underrated habits that you can develop as a business owner, and sometimes it's amazing to go big and go splashy, but I'll tell you, what I've found in my own experience, it's those small action steps every single day. People sometimes are like, Marie, you know, what's the secret to your success? I'm like, you know what? I'm a relentless motherfucker. You cannot stop me. Do you know what I mean? Like, how much should I say? She ain't gonna make it, she doesn't right, she's got this foul voice, you're not professional, blah, blah. I'm like, oh yeah, watch me. Just try and get me back. So, to answer that question, it was because I had been creating content and working with people and staying focused on the mission for so many years that there were a number of people in her team who were like, yeah, that Marie Forleo, you should know about her, you should know about her. And so when the producers called, I had the experience to back up and say, hey, I think I can create some value for this particular show. And then once I did that, which is actually, I think, fun, maybe we can talk about everything is figure-outable, they invited me. So Oprah does this thing called Super Soul Sessions, right? Super Soul Sessions. And I remember for a while, I had book publishers like, we need a book from you, we need a book from you. And one of the things for me, I'm like, I ain't on no one else's timeline but my own. Right? I don't care what people are telling you I'm supposed to be doing, what people are like, you have to do this now, you should be doing this now, you should sell B School like 17 times a year. I'm like, no, I should do what I want to do because it's my damn business and my damn life. So, Super Soul Sessions, I had this feeling when they asked me if I would speak at Oprah Super Soul Sessions, and it's basically like a one-day event where there's a bunch of TED Talks. And I had this idea to talk about what may be the single most powerful phrase that I've ever heard in my life, called everything is figure-outable, and really test run it on that stage. And I said, if it feels good in my body, we're going to turn that thing into a book. And when I spoke for Oprah back in 2016, it felt so good in my body that I was like, hell yes, let's turn this into a book.
So everything is figure-outable.
Yes.
Everything is figure-outable.
Yes.
Sometimes it doesn't feel that way.
Oh, that's right. I'm paying attention to how much time we have left here. That's accurate, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so I definitely want to talk about this because for 10X, I admire, I respect, and I love you guys so much because you're hard workers. So I just want to share with you just this little phrase, if I can, for the next few minutes that has made such a huge difference in my life, and we'll talk about it. So let me tell you where this phrase came from, because it's really fun, and I think that this will help you hold on to it, not only for the rest of this weekend, but for the rest of your life. So, I want to tell you about my mom. Her name is Miriam. As I shared before, she grew up in the projects of Newark, New Jersey, to 2 alcoholic parents, and she really learned by necessity how to stretch a dollar bill around the block like 5 times. Anyone grow up in that kind of family? Yes. Yeah. So, one of my fondest memories when I was a little girl growing up in New Jersey was sitting around the kitchen table with my mom clipping out coupons, because she loved to teach us all the different ways that our family could save money. Now, she also taught me about the fact that brands would send you cool free shit like cooking utensils or recipe books if you saved up your proofs of purchase. Remember those?
Oh yeah.
So one of my mom's most prized possessions in the world was this tiny little AM/FM transistor radio that she got from Tropicana Orange Juice for free. This little radio was shaped like an orange. It was orange in color. It has this red and white straw sticking out of the side. That's the antenna. And I knew as a kid that I could find her somewhere around the yard or somewhere around the house by listening for music blaring out of that little radio. One day, I'm walking home from school, and I hear the radio playing off in the distance. And as I get closer, I realize that the sound was coming up from above. And I look, and my mom, who's a tiny little woman, she's perched on the roof of our 2-story house precariously with this little orange sitting next to her. And I was like, Mom, are you okay? What are you doing up on the roof? And she yells down, she's like, Bree, I'm fine. The roof had a leak. I called the roofer, who said it would be at least $500. I said, screw that, I'm doing it myself. My mom, she's amazing. Looks like June Cleaver, curses like a truck driver, has the tenacity of a bulldog. She's still like that to this day. I'm surprised I'm not getting all cap texts right now, like, how the fuck are you doing? Like, that's my mom. She's amazing. So another time, I come home from school, right? And I hear the little radio blaring off in the back of the house. And I go, and it turns out my mom's in the bathroom. So I push open the door. There's like power tools on the floor. There's pipes sticking out of the wall. There's dust particles everywhere. It looked like an explosion went off. I'm like, Mom, are you okay? What's going on? She's like, oh, Marie, I'm fine. The tiles in the shower, they had some cracks in it. And I didn't want the bathroom to get all moldy. So I'm retiling the entire bathroom. Now you gotta get, my mom is high school educated, right? And this is the 1980s. This is a pre-internet, pre-Google, pre-YouTube kind of world. One day, it's in the fall, and I'm coming home from school, and it's already dark out. And as I approach my house, the house is completely black and it's silent. Now, in an Italian-American home, a dark, silent home, not a good sign. Yes? So I walk in and I have this pit in my stomach, genuinely afraid of what I might find. Like, where's my mom? Where's the sound of this radio? And I'm tiptoeing around the house and I started getting more freaked out. All of a sudden I hear these little clicks and clacks coming from the kitchen. I walk in and I see my mom hunched over the kitchen table, which looked like an operating room. There's screwdrivers, there's electrical tape, and about a dozen little pieces is a completely dismantled Tropicana orange. And I was like, Mom, are you okay? That's your favorite thing. She's like, Ree, I'm fine. The tuner dial was a little off, the antenna was busted. I'm fixing it. And I stood there, like, looking at my mom, watching her work her magic, like I always do. And then I finally thought to ask the question I should have always asked, which was this. Hey Mom, how do you know how to do so many different things that you've never done before, but nobody's shown you how to do it? And she put down her screwdriver, she cocked her head to the side, she said, Great, what are you talking about? Nothing in life is that complicated. You can do anything you set your mind to. If you roll up your sleeves, you get in there, and you do it. Everything is figure-outable. Cool. And that phrase just washed over me, and I kept repeating it over and over and over again, and it has become the single most powerful driving force in my life. Like when I was in high school, it helped me get out of this toxic and physically abusive relationship. When I was in college, it helped me get into rare work study positions that I needed to actually help pay for school. When I graduated, it helped me get that gig on Wall Street. I used to do weird, oddball things like selling glow sticks at mega clubs in New York City, which was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. It was so awesome. And it's what really inspired me to, start making videos on my webcam, and which later evolved into MarieTV and the Marie Forleo podcast and tens of millions of fans all around the world that I'm so grateful to have today. So, I do want to say this though, and I want you guys to be honest. I want you to be super honest. Well, let me back up for a second. First, I believe so much in the power of this idea because it can help you fix like really mundane stuff. Like when your washing machine breaks or the internet goes out. It can help you achieve huge stuff, like 10xing your business or your life. It can also help you navigate the really tough stuff that we human beings, every single one of us, will have to face. Things like divorce, perhaps, or addiction, or depression, or grief, or sometimes a life-changing or a life-altering diagnosis. But look, just because I'm 100% certain that everything is figure-outable doesn't mean that everybody has to also be on board with that. In fact, can I see a show of hands? Just let me know. I'm going to get out of the light to see if I can see it. How many people in here, and it's okay, I want truth and honesty. How many people in here don't believe that everything is figure-outable? Like you're a little skeptical. Anyone? Okay, good. Okay, can we dive into that skepticism for a little bit? Because this little phrase will change your fucking life like nothing else, but I need you to get how rock solid it is. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, good. So, when I first started to work on the book, I was out to brunch with some friends, and one of my friends brought her 10-year-old son. So we're going around the table, they're like, Great, what are you working on? I'm working on a new book. What's the title of it? Everything is figure-outable. And the 10-year-old's like, no, it's not. Nope, definitely not. And I was like, okay, this is awesome. Tell me, young man, what do you believe is not figure-outable? And he said, well, we human beings can't grow working wings out of our back and fly away. And I was like, well, that's some inventive shit. But first of all, have you heard of CRISPR? Because that may be coming, as weird as it might be, in 10, 15, 20 years. And I said, and I also want to point out that even though we don't have wings yet, we human beings can indeed fly. And he was like, oh, I guess you're right. He's like, well, what about this one? I can't bring my dog back from the dead. And to myself, I'm thinking, that is some pet cemetery shit right there. But out loud, I said, you know, scientists are working on cryogenics, and human beings have been cloning their dogs for a little bit now. And he was like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. So, from a scientific perspective, just because something hasn't been figured out doesn't mean it's not figure outable, just that it hasn't been figured out yet. See that distinction? 100 years ago, human beings hadn't figured out how to walk on the moon, just as a simple example. And then cut to 1969, and all of a sudden we figured that out. Yeah? Environment to support that dream coming to life. You're staying connected with 10X, you're staying connected to Grant and Elena and everyone else. And please, if I could just add on, I just want to give you this phrase to own it for yourself, that everything really is figure outable. Yes? And I got one more thing, I'm sorry, am I like, okay, there's one more thing I want to talk about. Does anyone in here ever feel like shit after you fuck up and fail? Right? After the thing that you worked so hard on, and you gave it your best, and it flopped. So I remember early on in my career, I used to like catalog every single thing that I did wrong, and it was just like this running list, and that voice takes over, and then it keeps you down, and it prevents you from getting back up again and again. And I remember I heard something early on, and it made such a huge difference for me, and I want to share this with you guys too. So, in addition to everything is figure outable, because that will help you when the shiitake hits the fan, and it does in all of our businesses consistently. By the way, as a sidetrack, if you ever feel like everyone else hasn't figured out, like Grant and Elena, oh, their shit never breaks, or other people who you admire, like their tech never breaks, they got it all together, their teams work perfectly, that's some bullshit, am I right?
For sure.
Yeah. So
still figuring it out every single day.
That's right. Never get down on yourself, and never think that everybody else has it all together and you're just fucked up on, because it's not true. But here's the phrase that I want you to remember as well. Ready? When you take an L, here's what you say to yourself. A loss. I win or I learn, but I never lose. I win or I learn, but I never lose. Yes? So you might be scraped up and bloody for a minute. The money maybe didn't get into your account, right? But you've got to take control of what's going on in here. You have to frame it in the right way. You have to know that either you won, you closed that deal, that money's in the bank, you made that impact, whatever happened, or if it didn't happen this time, what can you learn from this experience? What can you learn? I win or I learn, but I never lose. I'll tell you, failure is an event. It is not a characteristic. Yes? People, this was taught to me by a woman named Judge Victoria Pratt. If you want to see a powerful interview with a woman from a court system in Newark, New Jersey, who has become nationally recognized for her work in criminal justice reform, Google Marie Forleo, Judge Victoria Pratt. She taught me this. Failure is an event, not a characteristic. People cannot be failures. Yes? So never take on that identity for yourself. I know we only got a couple more minutes.
We're okay, because I definitely want to get in this question, which we've asked everyone. Some people didn't even know. Dana White was like, we said, what do you think, or what does 10X mean to you? And Dana White was like, well, t-shirts come in 4X, so 10X has got to be huge.
Here's what 10X means to me in my heart. When I think about that phrase, when I think about this movement, when I look out into this audience and I see all of these beautiful hearts and souls and so much creativity, 10X means to me that there ain't no such thing as scarcity. There ain't no such thing as not enoughness, especially when it comes to the most important things in this life, right? Which are opportunity, creativity, love, connection, and redemption. There is always more where that came from. And to me, 10X represents that abundance, that enoughness, that possibility that there is always more, not only for you, but for the people who you're here to serve and for the impact that you're here to make.
It is so important to collaborate with like-minded people, to build your network. We have brought so many amazing people right to this stage, and the weekend's not over. Thank you so much with gifting this audience with all of your amazing knowledge. I've learned so much from you. Everything is figure-outable is going to go through my veins from here on out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's show them the dance. Ready?